In this video, I'm going to be drawing this thing, a cool little goblin rider hiding in the trees. This is the art ritual. This is a laid back, real-time drawing / sketching session. I'm going to be drawing and chatting and talking about whatever is on my mind, and you can join me. You can either be just hang out, listen, watch, or you can be sketching along and drawing along with me. Anyway, this should be a fun little sketching session. Let's jump in and get started. Alright, welcome to the Drawing Codex. My name is Mcburnie. I've been a professional working artist for over 20 years, and on this channel, we're all about drawing cool stuff from our imagination, embracing the challenge of drawing, and mastering the craft of line and color illustration. Now, if you'd like to learn more about illustration and picture making, you can check out my free illustration mini workshop. It charts my journey going from an amateur to a professional, and I talk a lot about really important issues such as how to get more detail and polish in your work, how to plan your images, create thumbnails, and also a few thoughts on how to approach being a professional artist. As I said, it's free. The link will be in the description. Go check it out if that's something you're interested in. All right, let's get to it. Tools for today are going to be some paper. More specifically, got some Strathmore 400 series drawing paper. This is a medium surface, which means it has a little bit of tooth. We'll see how we go. I have some thumbnails that I'm going to pick from. I think I'll be using this one, and this is just in a standard Moleskine style sketchbook. Got a 2-stage sharpener, kneadable eraser or putty eraser. Got 2 Blackwing pencils, the 602 and the matte. And this is kind of what I'm thinking I'm going to try and tackle. I've got a image that, again, is from this kind of little goblin-y world that I've kind of been tweaking and messing around with for a while. And this is basically what we're going to draw. But I'm going to do a little bit of messing around with the design, because I've done a few of these versions of this, and I feel like I like the look of this creature better. I like the look of this goblin guy better. And again, this is something I'm trying to refine. So that's kind of my goal, I guess, the sub goal of this. But mostly, we're just doing some sketching. All right, so there's a variety of ways I could sort of rough in the general proportion of this drawing. It's not really important. This is mostly here as an idea, but again, I'm going to try and draw a line along the bottom there. I'll sort of try and draw a line here, and I'm just using the edge of the sketchbook to try and give me a good read on that. Then I put this sketch, and I'll bring it down from now and then so we can kind of check it out, but I'm just sort of putting it off screen up there. And yeah, so again, very rough block in of the composition. Again, I'll tweak that as we go, and again, moving that up a bit. So that's roughly what I need to do. All right. Now, this is going to be a little bit faint to begin with, and I think that's again, that's just how this kind of works. It's important to understand when we're sketching initially, what we are trying to do is create a like a pretty light version of our drawing. Let me adjust that camera a little bit though, so that it's not too dark. So again, I feel like one of the things from the sketch that I was kind of noticing is I feel like I do want to bring this branch down a little bit. So I'm going to be super sketchy in the beginning, and my goal is to kind of rough in the space. Where are things going to be? Right, then I've got this kind of, I don't even really know what I've kind of called this thing, this creature. But it's kind of like a bird / dragon thingy. So at this stage, I'm doing what I would describe as kind of massing in, right? That's really the goal. So I'm going to have a little guy here. And what that means is it's more a matter of how much space things are going to take up versus really considering too much of the structure. And when I'm doing these thumbnails, again, like a big part of it is understanding that it's there for me. This is not a professional thumbnail. This is something that, again, I get to tweak and create on my own. So I can change it, right? I can definitely change the direction that things are meant to be going. We can erase, play around with it, and hopefully, again, if I'm light enough, this is why I'm often trying to be light. If I am light enough, then it'll be fine. And also, I'm not trying to dig in, right? Just trying to be very soft with the pencil so that we don't create anything that can't be gone back and edited. So again, in the original sketch, we got this character thing going this way. And we've got the rear of it sort of over here. And we had this arm. And it's weird because, again, so often what I find is when I design some weird thing, it's often takes me quite a while to really figure out, like, what about it was good? Like, what about that design was actually interesting? And so often it's a learning process, trying to really figure out what worked, what didn't. So again, this is still what I would consider pre-structure, and again, I do apologize, this is going to be a little bit faint, but this part of the process is so important if you are, trying to take some educational sort of quality from this. Thinking about the mouth there, we have that beak. And a bit like a dolphin, one of the things I sort of notice about this is we've got like this permanent smile that I think is so important to the design. Got this. Then we kind of have this fluffy, again, bird-like ruffle, right? It's almost like a mane. And I feel like, again, I might have to tweak the structure and the position. Again, sketching is a process of approximating, right? Continually tweaking, continually approximating. And yeah, part of the design is these kind of arms here that are a little bit, right, so like really weird, like this shape. Super important to the design. So we're going to follow through with the structure there, and boom. So So that's where it would be if it was in a similar position, but I think what I'm going to do is sort of imagine that this elbow, right, is down a little bit more behind there, and that thus we're creating a bit more of an interesting little movement to the arm there. Again, drawing through, doing all of the things that I normally recommend that we do when we're sketching and drawing. Now, I haven't done a lot of stuff. I've been writing mostly this week, so there is every chance this drawing will turn out a little bit wonky. And I'm going to need to sort of get up over it to really check things, and then do a big edit pass. Again, here's the log. And we're going to have some leaves kind of over here. Again, giving us some good foreground depth. Still not 100% sure on the overlaps here or anything like that, but again, just trying to get the basic idea there. Again, still using very soft version of the pencil. So here, again, let's try to block out this a bit better. Let's draw these legs. All right, I imagine this little guy here is kind of crouching down, so we got his torso, we got the head, shoulder, and then arm here, and this arm is here. And I like the idea that this little guy, again, not entirely sold on exactly which version of this character design I'll have, but I'm going to give him sort of big eyes at any rate. He's kind of looking down. And we got some leaves here. Boom. This thing, again, still not entirely sold on this. I'm going to have to go through and do a proper pass on it. So again, we're not one of the other things that's interesting about different designs, right, is that typically sort of different designs will have good angles that we want to view them from, right? And this becomes more and more important. So again, very rough. And this is one of those really, I guess, tentative points of a drawing where we're never really sure whether it's going to work or not. I would say I'm unconvinced yet. It needs kind of tweaking, and so much of experience is understanding what needs tweaking. But firstly, I'm just going to put in my thumbnail. I'm going to try and put some of these leaves right again in the foreground here. Boom. But one of the things that I find really useful is to just make sure I do block in the thumbnail that I had, because often there's good reasons why the thumbnail worked. And if you kind of have a good thumbnail, one of the things that will probably define a good thumbnail is that, you know, if you take a big bit out of it, it's not going to be as good, because all the bits and pieces have been considered. So there is always that chance that no, this is good, this is working, but I just need to actually fill it in, right, and sort of fill it out. But I have a feeling that my biggest sort of problem is with this sort of creature and just figuring out the pose. Again, if we go back to the thumbnail, we can kind of see this is kind of what I had in mind, but yeah, I'm not really feeling that, to be honest. So what I'll probably do is we'll get rid of it and try again. Now again, I did like that face, and this is where you often run into problems, right? You're often sitting there saying, look, I like the face, but you know, we're not really in the right spot, and you know, you could try and keep it there, and I could work other stuff that I feel like was working around it. But yeah, I'm just gonna bin it and get rid of it. Sharpen this pencil. So I'm still working with the 602, and that's a lighter pencil than the matte Blackwing, right? And again, I'll be laying in the darker tones later, but for now, let's see if we can sort of figure this out. Now, there's a variety of different ways you could do this, right? But again, one of the things I'm sort of feeling out as I do this is just like, yeah, how do these designs work? How do I get it to function? And for me, a big part of what I was kind of realizing with this design, now that I remember, is that there's this really kind of straight back to it that I think is really key, right? So there's this kind of straight back, and what I'm thinking is like, can I do something like that? Again, as I flow into this, as I start getting a little bit less sucky, let's say, with my sketching, I start to remember things about what was working with this design and what was not. And this is very much a case of, look, it's not working how I wanted. I had that sort of real foreshortened look at it, and I don't probably really know how to use this design from a sort of front-on foreshortened perspective. So, and get the appeal there, really make it clear why this is good. And this is something that's so important with, you know, sort of comics and iconic designs. Often what you find is they're only really working from certain angles, right? And you just don't notice that because the artists who have gotten really good at drawing them just don't draw them from those weird other angles. It's really important to appreciate the appeal of some of these designs. So again, what I'm doing here is not necessarily a good idea. I'm kind of roughing in detail when I shouldn't be roughing in detail, but sometimes it's good to just get a feel for, like, look, is this going to be right? Where's this detail going to be? Now here's where I want this face to be. And I think, like, look, this one is going to be somewhat foreshortened. So we kind of have the beak, and then we got this shape here. This shape here. So I'm foreshortening the head a little bit. Thinking about what's happening. So yeah, from a construction standpoint, I'm really just thinking about triangles, right? If we think about the beak, right? Going like this, that's right what we're dealing with. So in so saying, the point there is I can actually get a pretty good read on whether or not something's going to fit. So I'm curious about these tangents, and that will kind of define like how much do we open that beak, because again I want to maintain this tangent here. I want to make sure we got a clear read here. That's kind of why I put some of this stuff in. So looking at the design I did, we kind of have something a bit like this going on. Boom. So where's the center of that? Again, let's try and construct the center. And again, he has that dolphin look where we kind of go up here a bit. Then we go down. Then we go up. Right? Permanent smile. The beak comes up the top. And we have these kind of other shapes. And again, part of me is trying to get these things looking, yeah, you know, kind of friendly. All right, let's go again. We're here with that centered thing. Boom. And then we've got the fuzziness. And again, this mix of like furriness and non-furriness. Boom. So yeah, again, you know, I think that's kind of doing what I want it to do. Got a bit of a weird tangent here. Make sure that goes over there. So yeah, lots of redrawing. Again, we can take all this back, or hey, this is just, you know, art ritual sketching. Can kind of do whatever I want with it, right? But again, I'm starting to have confidence that this little guy might work. But what I need to do now is really think about the arm, right? Like what is happening with this arm. So yeah, one of the cool design things here is it's not really like a bird arm. It's not really like anything. All right, we've got the elbow that kind of comes out there. Boom. I'm not sure if that's big enough, but boom, might have to do. So again, we got compression on this side. We got this straight line. This comes down here, tail, boom, picks up there. And then we have this weird sort of manta ray style tail. Again, just roughed in, but super important to make sure that it goes. Now, the thing is, this tail is kind of quite small, but it has sort of webbing, which is all sort of part of the design, right? So there is a webbed look to some of these. And I think part of what I was doing was trying to link up some of the webbing with some of this design. But I don't think I'm going to tackle that in this particular drawing. So where's the other leg behind there? I don't know. Just solving problems. It's just one problem after another. One problem after another. One foot in front of the other. And again, I like the idea of this neck maybe not being... like the chest is kind of here. And the neck comes up, or are they all one? Don't know. Yeah, I think that works. All right, where are we on the other side? If we were looking at this arm on the other side, I can draw through. All right, we've got this kind of line here. Boom. This is sort of the box everything's fitting into. All right, I've got a rough sort of idea of where the other line would be going. Boom, boom. What's happening with this? Now, I feel like if we look at where that's going to end up, I think we're going to have that other leg going back. Boom, boom. Get some separation. And this one is going to go forward. So let's look at the joint, right? If we were to view a little skeletal thing, we've got a joint here, right? Maybe it kind of goes like that. Who knows? Again, shoulder blade, right? Boom. So maybe there's this thing here, and either way, it can kind of come down. Right, boom, boom. And then this one, instead of being up here, right, it's going to come down a bit so that this can come out here. So again, a lot of it is like, which one do we want to show first? Which line is important? So I'm just going to sort of say what I want is this forearm to be kind of over here. Then if I sort of imagine the shapes that is going to create and how I want that to intersect, again, this is where we can kind of cheat a little bit. And a lot of this is about simplification, right? There's where it would all go, and then there's let's make some cool shapes. Let's see if this reads. And I think even though I'm not 100% convinced, everything lines up there, look, it's pretty good. I feel like we're getting those, animation, Disney style loops and appeal, right? The shape design. And this is very much a question of when you're sketching, right? Like, what do you prioritize? Do you prioritize the shape design? Do you prioritize, structure? What's important? I mean, one of the things that, again, I feel like we often don't appreciate when we are, doing this is just how much freedom we have, right? You can kind of, emphasize the shapes, especially, it's like we're not actually doing animation, right? We don't have to make sure it works. It's one of the beauties of comics. And I think so often, again, I often have to remind myself of this, but so often we forget that, we're competing with other medium. There's a degree to which, we're kind of competing with games and movies and all these other things. And they have advantages and we have advantages. And I think one of the advantages is just the degree to which you can prioritize for shape design when you are creating, sort of comics and stuff like that. And it's something that's a real pain, right? If you have to make a lot of those decisions in a feature animation or something like that. Does this design work? Can we push it? Can we squash it? Can we stretch it? Right? What is doable? What is not doable? When we're, again, I'm not sure about the pointiness of the hat. I kind of like this as, I was kind of thinking of this as like a flying helmet hat thing. I'm not entirely convinced it's kind of working though. Again, might be cool to have that hair out. Might not. Might just be like extra shapes. Who knows? But yeah, like the idea of here's our kind of torso. Right? Again, here's the pelvis, and here I'm going to have this leg up here. Boom. And again, still maybe it has some sort of parachute or pack on here. Yeah, let's make sure there's a sword here or something. So strapped on. So again, not sure these really work here, although I mean, one of the reasons that these leaves could work is because it kind of says like he's looking through the foliage. So we get this vibe that maybe there's like something afoot, there's something secret going on. I'm not entirely sold on this helmet idea. I think that needs some actual design. So what I might go back to is like just the older design I had with these kind of fantasy hair things. Boom. And again, I think this whole thing needs a pass. But we'll give him a little concerned frown, right? Like he's sort of looking on the ground, like something's up. Again, I'll probably rework the expression. Not entirely convinced about this. Boom. Maybe try some bracelets or something like that. That might be a bit complicated. So again, just playing around. And yeah, the goal is to just get this working, right? This character, right? See, and then I can kind of relax, and the rest is sort of not as vital, right? Again, need to sharpen that guy, I reckon. So you can see even the Blackwing 602 is like a pretty dark pencil. Can get pretty dark. Just give it a bit of blunting. We want it sharper, but maybe not that sharp. Boom. And again, go with that hair. Simple shape. And you know, this is normally how I work if I'm doing this kind of stuff, right? Just kind of erase it a little bit, right? Knock it back. It's okay to have a sketchy end result here. That is going to work fine. Boom. Boom. So being very iconic with these eyes. And because we're working in pencil again, I can add a bit of tonality to some of these shapes. But yeah, I really think this expression he's got needs a bit of tweaking. What is he looking at? That is the dramatic question. Now, can I play with this, right? Like, could we have a bit of an eyebrow there or something to make it look more concerned? So here we've got I need to refine a lot of these shapes. So this is normally how it happens, right? It's like I kind of refine one shape and then another. I kind of realize, oh yeah, well that, now that we kind of make that a bit better, we can see that this other one is kind of boring or lacks drama. Again, put some little hands here. Well, alright, let's loop this over, give us some more room, add what I normally call secondary form. And it's all these little bits and pieces. You know, I talk about this a lot in the sort of mini illustration workshop, the importance of secondary form. Again, that's the sort of free one I mentioned in the beginning. Just sort of talked through my journey and, you know, realizing a lot of these things, right? Like what's the difference between my art, and I would always have this, what's the difference between my sketchy art that, you know, is unfinished and someone else's sketchy art that everyone likes. And, you know, I think often it is, again, just that appreciation for hinting at the details, hinting at that secondary form, and you kind of need to be able to put in and know where the form would go. That's really the trick. You need to understand the secondary form, and if we sort of do that, then we can easily hint at it. If you don't know where it is, you can't hint at it. All right. So again, as we refine, now this is a primary read, so this is worthwhile me, in my opinion, right, working on. Now, a lot of this other stuff is, you know, what I would consider unimportant. I think these guys have little tails, but haven't quite figured out that design either. And I might really just make this hair again sort of nice and rounded. Yeah. Again, constant process. So yeah, a lot of this stuff is not important, right? I mean, this foreground stuff is not important. So I'm going to try and get the overall stuff there, right? Like the shapes happening. But the rest of it is going to get suggested. And that is to say, look, I can just kind of blend a lot of this stuff that's back here into one shape, right? All of this is kind of just, you know, mush. It doesn't really matter. All right, so you can see my hand is fully dirty here. So what I want to do is try and make sure I do this side first. And again, my goal is just to nail that face, and then everything else is gonna be touch wood kind of downhill, right? If I can get this face to work, I think it'll be okay. Now, one of the problems I kind of see is, yes, this little creature is further back, but in a lot of the reference, that the head is a lot bigger. So insofar as I tweak this, I'm going to try and make it bigger, the head bigger. But yeah, we can see here that there's a lot of sort of mush here, and I want to get a nice clean read. Where did that go? And probably at this point, I'm starting to see the limitations of this paper, right? I kind of hacked away at it a little bit too much, and I really get a feeling that it's not gonna take too much more. So yeah, not much I can do about the size of the head. That might just have to be kind of part of the, you know, we'll pretend that's just what's happening with the perspective. Just going to make this a little bit cleaner of a shape. Drawing that tongue in there. And I think, yeah, like one of the things that kind of is interesting is that I could probably, again, like I probably can make this nose just a little bit, right, a little bit bigger. I can probably make this a little bit bigger. Get rid of this. So again, just being super tentative because there's so many of these little bits and pieces. Kind of put it up, right? Like, kind of, how does it look? I feel like that needs to come up there a bit. Boom. In real danger of losing, right? The design of it. Because again, I kind of want it to really feel like the head is kind of here. Right? I've got this head here. Right, got this thing that's coming up there. And then this one. Sort of down there. And I'm not sure like whether I put in a little nostril on here. I don't know whether that's going to work, but yeah, so the key is basically to try and keep like this shape fairly consistent, right? Kind of really feels like these things go together, and I still have that cool shape. Boom. Yeah. So again, just gonna sort of add a little bit of like feathering to the edge here. Make it clear like, yeah, you know, this guy is a little bit kind of furry. Now I wouldn't do this if it wasn't for the pencil, right? If I was doing this in the line and color style, I would probably leave it. That is to say, if I was doing it in, you know, clean line style, coloring in Photoshop, I probably wouldn't include much of that sort of textural work with the pencil, but the pencil is there and we should use it. Respond to the tools that are at your disposal. So again, not sure if like adding a bit of shadow work there is gonna help. But yeah, the idea is that beak kind of goes up a bit. So again, I feel like I'm kind of getting to the point where I'm like, yeah, okay, like it's not perfect, but it kind of works, right? It's giving me the right vibe. Again, I'm not even sure whether I like it being that furry, right? I think like sort of up here, like cleaner, Right, clean, and then a little bit more furry as it gets towards this. Boom, 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 boom. And yeah, I think at that point, I'm kind of feeling like, yeah, now we need to maintain the hierarchy of detail. So what I normally do as I'm sort of thinking about essentially finishing things off, or, you know, like going and just refining what's there, is, yeah, I just go through and try and erase any of these really intense sort of construction marks here, because that way it's very easy to go over. So, you know, I can see I've still got this sort of faint version of this character in the background. So let's try to get rid of that. Let's get rid of anything that's really kind of like fiddly. It's going to be hard to go in there and get rid of, right? Got some of these weird construction marks. Some of this in here. And this just means that as I kind of progress through the drawing, those bits will just naturally get kind of covered up, and it'll be a little bit easier to maintain the surface of the painting. Sorry, drawing / art / whatever. Boom. But you can see we've got a lot of sketchiness going on, right? A lot of that smudging. Yeah, I totally need one of those brushes. Worthwhile also at this point to, you know, refine this outline, right? Like where does that go? It's not quite straight. Yeah, where does this go? Boom. See if we can make it a bit darker, because this will really help us to figure out where detail goes. Boom. Again, just a sketch, right? Just something super simple. Doesn't have to be really clean. And I'm gonna play around with this, right? We're gonna have to put some paper over everything. All right. So again, I'm not doing shading per se, not really thinking about, you know, light and dark. I'm trying to make sure that everything I do is a line. But yeah, here, just go through and make sure we nail all these outlines. If we get these outlines right, the rest of it will kind of fall into place, I think. And also a lot of the, you know, hierarchy of detail, refining the reads, we kind of need this level of detail in the outline and the actual kind of structure to do it properly. All right, bump, bump. Thinking about, again, all I'm trying to do is create overlap. Create the illusion of complexity, right? One thing going in front of another thing. This will give us a lot of general sort of parallax and a feeling of complexity. I'm kind of very conscious in the way that I'm creating these marks. I'm trying not to create them too, you know, in any sort of definitive way. There's a lot of gaps here. That's going to go over there, isn't it? And that's kind of part of the deal, right? So I'm just always rotating this pencil if I want a slightly sharper line, which is something I really had to learn to do because I was always using mechanical pencils, which tend to give a pretty good line all the time. But yeah, the way you use a a normal sort of wooden pencil, from my experience anyway, is kind of quite specific. You can sort of sharpen it, or again you see it's kind of going to create different levels of sharpness just naturally. Again, this is super obvious to anyone who's used a lot of that sort of stuff, but yeah, for me it was a big challenge in the beginning. Alright, again, doing this. Now it's very easy at this stage to, I could easily mess up this composition by putting, too much here and there. So yeah, you do have to really step back, right? Consider, think about what you're doing. And this whole process, right? A pencil drawing like this really exists halfway between a proper construction drawing and a a finished drawing. So, I'm probably finishing it more than I normally would. I'm not doing, inking over the top. So it has a very specific level of finish. So it's still a bit sketchy, right? It's still a pencil drawing. If I wanted to make it more polished, I'd probably, again, not go quite to this level of figuring out all the details, etc. And then I'd trace it or just copy it and use this as a basis for. Alright, now where do we have? We had this line here, but I think that is a better way. That's a better place to put this tree. Boom, boom. And I think this branch here will be a big tree branch, not necessarily a small. Small stick. So yeah, again, this stuff is going to end up being pretty vague, but worthwhile. Doing a little bit of construction there to figure it out. Boom, 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 boom. Now, did we have? I feel like we did have at some point one, like another sort of tree here. So I think there was like an interesting comment where someone was saying on, I forget which video, that like it can be tricky to know what to do between trees, right? So I don't know whether I've sort of actually sort of responded and gave like a proper answer, but one of the things that's really important that I kind of learned to do with that, right, when you're just kind of like filling detail, right, we're just kind of putting stuff there, is that you really need to kind of think of some of these things as if they are just abstract marks. So if we sort of look at between the tree, the tools that I have are branches, right? I can put branches within, and then I can add, right, some sort of tonal shadow to define, right, like what is a branch, what is not a branch. And this is basically my sort of plan. Boom, boom. But yeah, it's this like what tool do I have? So we can see there again, probably need a bit more understanding of what's going on with this shape and form before I really go crazy with it. But again, it's okay if that sort of blends in, right? That is not critical. And here, right, probably going to have some other leaves. So this is just suggestion. And I'm kind of fading off the detail here, right? Like this is kind of right? This is not important. And these leaves aren't designed that well, right? They're kind of just going everywhere, but that's all right. So in a similar way, again, maybe we can put some light tone on this far leg, make it kind of disappear a little bit. And again, tonally, it's right. The idea is all these things kind of blend into one. Some texture on this tree. More leaves. So this is where, again, you just noodle around. Although it is important to consider the hierarchy of detail. So I don't want to put too much stuff here that is going to interfere with the overall read, right? Which is to say I still want focus here. So all these things that I'm putting in are meant to be second fiddle to what's going on up here. And you just have to keep remembering those things, right? Like it's very simple, but if you just keep remembering those things and just keep remembering, like, right, like what's my goal? What am I meant to be focusing on? It's easy to just go through and do a whole bunch of this really unimportant work, right? That goes down there, boom, boom. And I feel like I want another tree kind of here. So in between these trees we have, you guessed it, branches. And where do we put them? We put them so that they create interesting tangents, right? So that I can tell the story of that depth. That is probably not a good one. And again, kind of fill in this. Now this is real. I'm being very flippant with this, but this can be a huge pain if you don't sort of get that right. Just putting random little sketchy marks behind a character, because it can be a huge pain to get rid of. But yeah, just go slower if you're doing this sort of thing for the first time. Again, same thing here, right? We can just fill this up with some sketchy texture, right? Just suggesting. But, you know, the suggestion is kind of built on me, you know, spending a lot of time noodling trees in much more detail. So yeah. Again, let's block it all in. See what it looks like. See what we got. And to a certain degree, again, like once I've got it there, it's you know, I can really play around and, you know, push and pull some bits and pieces. We can sort of emphasize some of the lines, right, on the tree. Make sure that we got some good compositional leading lines where we want them. Just a matter of sort of emphasizing the ones we want, de-emphasizing the ones we do not want. Boom, boom. Again, I feel like there's probably going to be some extra lines there. And what you can do is, I'm just going to sort of break up this tonality that I'm putting back here to maybe indicate that, yeah, maybe there is some extra stuff back there. Who knows? It's just suggested sketchy mush, and that it is a real tool, right? Right, this tree is here. Again, you know, it might have random branches. Gonna break up that tonality, make it feel as if like, oh, maybe there is something there. Again, what we'll do is we'll be emphasizing the bottom of this line here. Right, make sure, emphasize that texture. Right, make this clear that, you know, this is one shape, because now we have a lot of this sort of interesting mess. Right, let's sharpen that pencil a bit. Alright, what's going on with this? So I'm going to try and just make sure the silhouette of it is alright. And that way, again, you can try and just block it out and make sure it. Here we had, again, that is the line for it there. Let's redo the claw. I forget which line was which here. But I have a feeling that the leg is meant to be, right? Yeah, kind of going back there. I think that can kind of become part of this. Again, lost edges, what's going on there? Not entirely sure. If this was concept art painting, right, that would be totally acceptable. We just mush, we lose the edges. So again, hierarchy of detail is just as much about finding edges and losing edges as it is about adding stuff, right? You don't often need to add. That's often a misconception about adding detail. It's about refining where the detail is and where you want the viewer to look. Boom. So that's why, again, we're going to have a million little branches, but some of them are going to be more detailed than others, right? Boom. Put this here. Again, same thing. We can lose these. They're just going to be shapes. Suggest some details that might be here. Again, packs, things you can store on your rideable, whatever this thing is, bird dragon-y thing. Put a rope back here. You might always need a rope. Again, a few little details. Just make it a little bit easier. So again, I might indicate that there is a tree back here. Right, get this line flowing. That just helps to separate those shapes. Again, this one in the background does not have to be anywhere near as detailed. And again, we can, potentially lose some of that detail there. Lose some of the edges there, right? Like this kind of becomes one. Boom. Not necessarily saying that's like the best thing to do. That is just an example of, you know, how we would do that. And look, this is where it becomes tricky, because we really do want to maintain the focus up here. So that means to a certain degree that, you know, also as I put detail in, I want more detail around here, right? I want more detail around the things that I'm drawing that are, you know, the characters, the story, the main point. So I'm going to put more of that stuff here, emphasize the dimensionality, and that just links up elements that are in the foreground, right? And this thing is even more in the foreground, so I'm going to try and push it forward and probably, again, see if I can make it come forward even more. So the thing is that, yes, clarity is important. It's important that I understand where all these trees and things are going. But also it's important to understand that, you know, when you look at a forest, there is a real feeling of complexity there that, you know, can be difficult to properly understand, right? I think I need to kind of make this pop a little bit more. So it's okay if everything's a bit chaotic, basically. But again, I feel like this one is in the foreground. Let's push this. So you can see how sketchy I'm being, right? But, you know, that is based off experience of being able to make these weird marks that feel as if they have some cohesion to them, right? And again, these things are, let's turn that pencil, get a bit more grip. So again, now that I kind of have a good understanding of what's what, where the tonality is, I'm going to come back here and push these things a bit more. Right, again, have a few twigs and things, increase the visual complexity of what's going on, create a few more overlaps. Again, create a bit more detail there. This leaf is a complete mess, but it's kind of all we've got. Yep, and again, probably just going to push this back a bit because I don't want any of that to really be coming forward. Right, all of this stuff in the background is very much in the background. But this is where, again, you can keep fiddling, keep playing, keep messing around, and at some point, again, if you're doing this for the first time or whatever, or you try and reach like a new level of detail, you will probably mess it up and you will go too far. And that is all part of the learning experience. But yeah, I think for this one, that's pretty close to kind of where I need to leave it, I think. So still, you know, I'm not rendering it, right? I'm not making it like some you know, super dimensional thing. This is still very much a line and color illustration. I could take this into Photoshop or whatever and, you know, give it a good sense of color, and, you know, there's still plenty of room here to do that, I feel. So, you know, that's typically where I would kind of leave it. And again, you know, there's degree to where if I was just leaving it as a pencil drawing, right, I might push it further, right? I might try and play around with the dimensionality a bit more, maybe, you know, again, lose some more lines, whatever it is. But yeah, if we're just doing this, you kind of got to know when to fold them. But it's always, you know, again, I'm always just like, oh, just a little bit more, just fiddle around with this, right? We'll get this going. We could kind of, you know, push this thing here, push that thing there, right? Again, you know, refine some of the edges. So, you know, again, we've got some very vague little bits and pieces. And, you know, the more I go in there and just refine them, you might need to get the, right, it's got a little foot there, put in that little claw. Yeah, you might need to go in there and, you know, pick a few little bits and pieces out, right? A few little details. All right, still got this line that was sort of a construction line. Some of those things can be annoying, right? They're really sort of influencing the expression and the emotion. So, you know, it can be good to go through, pick those out, etc. But yeah, you know, I think for the most part, yeah, I'm kind of done with this one. So yeah, there we are, another art ritual. Haven't done one of these for a while, but again, I just like sitting down, sketching, seeing where it goes, seeing what happens. I think this turned out all right, all things considered. Let me know in the comments if you'd like to see more of these. Again, you know, as I said, I'd like to do more. I'd like to keep, you know, doing one of these regularly. Just have not had the time recently. Due to various schedule-related, deadline-related, you know, career-related things. But yeah, I would do this sort of absolutely every day if I could. Let me know in the comments down below what you think, whether you'd like to see some other sort of subject, go into detail on, you know, something else a little bit more, whatever. Other than that, catch you around. Happy drawing.